Good morning everyone. How is everyone doing? Welcome to day 2 of our pencils workshop, and if anything I'm more excited about today because I think coloured pencils have just got a place in my heart. Whatever I try, whatever I experiment with, I always seem to come back to coloured pencils, and so we're going to be talking about them today. Probably leaving my favourite till last, and we're going to be talking about watercolour pencils as well today, which are in their own right really great too, and they have lots of benefits and lots of things that we're going to be discussing. So I'm going to wait a few minutes for people to hop on. Please do say hello if you are live with me now, and if you're watching on the replay then please don't forget to say hi too, because it's always nice to be able to talk to you guys as if you were watching. I think you get a little bit more out of these workshops if you interact as if it is live. I know some of you are coming here from across the globe, so I know the time difference is a little bit of an issue, and I really wouldn't expect you to be getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning just to watch little old me, but I'm hoping that you can catch it on the replay later. I will put this in the announcements section in the group and it will stay in there for a little while. I think people are starting to hop on. That's really great. Do say good morning. Oh, I'm actually watching myself on the other live that I was doing yesterday, so I think sometimes it takes a little bit of time for it to actually show up in the group, and I know a couple of people were struggling yesterday. Obviously it depends on Wi-Fi and that kind of thing as well. So just going to leave it a couple of minutes for people to hop on and say good morning. The comments are going to take a little while to come in, but please do say good morning and let me know where you're watching from today. And us Brits, we always love to talk about the weather, don't we? And what's the weather doing there for you this morning? It's really rainy here today, so I'm so glad that I'm not in the conservatory, because you would not be able to hear me at all. I've actually had a little shift around in my house, which is really exciting, and moved my desk into the dining room and moved the dining table into the conservatory so that I can draw if it's sunny, because the blinds aren't great in the conservatory, and so if the sun came out I couldn't see my screen, and if it was raining I couldn't record. So kind of not the most practical place to have a studio, but it did have a view of the garden, which is always quite nice. But I suppose I'll probably get more done looking at a wall instead of the garden, so actually it's probably for the best. How is everyone today? I'd love to see how you are. How did you find yesterday? Really loved seeing your apples popping up in the group. They were amazing. I know it was quite fast yesterday, and some of you were saying, oh, you know, I was drawing along with you and I kind of took the pressure off myself and not worried too much about the outcome, but just enjoyed the process, which is definitely what I'm trying to get across in this workshop today. Taking the pressure off ourselves, taking the judgment away, because I think that can really get in the way of our creativity and why we actually make art. So I'm really glad that some of you either took it as a bit of a mindfulness exercise and took your time and did it slowly, and some of you just kind of went for it, which I'm definitely, you know, I go between both, and I think they're both really helpful and useful in their own way. So it was really lovely to see yesterday your apples coming in. So please do keep those coming. Even if you want to send me them by DM, you don't want them to be up in the group. If you feel a little bit shy about that, then please do send me a DM and I will look at them that way too. So yeah, it was really fantastic. Oh, I'm coming up now. I don't think there's any comments coming in. I can see them. Good morning, Margaret from wet North Devon. What is going on with the weather? I'm a little bit tired of the rain right now. I could do with some sunshine. I think we all could. Good morning, Mark from Nottingham. Just cloudy here. Well, it's not too bad. Hopefully the sun will come out for you. Hello, good morning, Anna from Malta. Nice and warm and sunny. Oh, Anna, I do feel a little bit jealous right now. Love Malta as well. I really do. It's beautiful there. Good morning, Kate. Great to be here today. Oh, great to have you here, Kate, as well. She's one of my lovely members. Any more comments coming in? They seem to be a little bit slow coming in. Technology is not my favourite thing, but you know, it's really quite handy to be able to interact with all you guys, and that's definitely a positive. So I'm just waiting a little while. Whilst we're waiting for people to jump on, a little bit of housekeeping. I forgot to say yesterday that if you do post your apples, then can you put the hashtag apple2, because or 1 if it was yesterday, although I'm a bit late for that. It's not a massive problem at all, but it just helps me to, if I can do a search, then it's a lot quicker for me to kind of collate the names for the draw, the prize draw, leading me on to the competition, which I'm going to put your names into a draw, into a wheel, and what I would love for you to do to enter the competition, the first prize being a month's free membership in the Art and Mindset membership, Discovering the Artist Within You. If you're already a member or you're thinking about joining, don't worry, I will give you a month's free anyway. You're not going to miss out if you join. And the second prize is a little, I've gone off screen, a little package that I will be popping in the post to you. The paper that we use and I use most often, 80–90% of the time with most of my work, and also a brand new Tombow Mono eraser and also a brand new Faber-Castell kneadable eraser, which are two tools that I could not live without. I just think they are amazing. So we will be demonstrating them again today. So to enter the competition, I would love it if you could like or love this video. And if you do that, it also sends it out to more people in the group, because I know the algorithm, it just sends it out to something like 2% of actually the people that are in this group, which is just bonkers, I think. So if you comment and you interact, it sends it out to more people. So I'd love for you to like and love. I'd love for you to comment, and it'd be nice to have a chat anyway. And then if you post some work, you can post the little worksheet. I put some little questions on it yesterday, so if you just kind of take a screenshot just to let me know that you've been taking part, or you can post a picture of your apple and put the hashtag apple2, and if it's yesterday, apple1. I'm not going to do the competition for a few days to give you a chance to catch up if you're going to be drawing your apples at the weekend or when you've got a bit of time. So don't worry, no rush at all, but it'd be lovely for you to see, it would be lovely to be able to see them in the group anyway. So please do that if you can. Lovely to have you here. Right, so today what we're going to be talking about to begin with is watercolour pencils. Now, I don't know whether you have ever used them before. Let me know if you have. It'd be lovely to know if we've got some people that are pretty used to them. The comments aren't coming up on my screen, which is annoying, but I tend to go cross-eyed trying to read them because they're a little dinky and my eyes are not great. But yeah, so I'm watching the screen as well. So let me know if you have used watercolour pencils before and how you find them. Do you like them? Do you get frustrated with them? Are they something that you use regularly? Let me know, because we're going to be demonstrating those first of all, partly because I need to let them dry. I need to let a layer dry before we go back to another layer, because it's really important that you don't draw on wet paper, because you will absolutely wreck the paper. So, watercolour pencils. My first ever set of pencils, and I wouldn't say it was actually a set, but I'll pull my trolley a little bit closer, that might help. It wasn't a set, but it was my first little step into the coloured pencil world. And what happened was, I think I'd seen something on Instagram, and I could not believe that this had been done with coloured pencils. I just thought that was amazing. I had to go with watercolour pencils last year when I started my art journey. Ah, did you, Caroline? That's good. Hello, Caroline. And also, I keep forgetting to introduce myself, because if you don't know me, then it's a little bit rude, isn't it? So I'm Sam. Nice to meet you. I'm an art and mindset tutor, and I love everything to do with pencils. That's me in a nutshell, really. So anyway, on my art journey. Good morning, Catherine. Lovely to see you. Morning, dull and wet and cold in North Yorkshire. Oh, good morning, Linda. Yeah, it's really horrible here today. Really, it's wind and it's the two combination. You know, wind and rain. I don't mind a bit of rain. I don't really like wind. I find it a bit frightening. And together, you just feel, yeah, it's just a little bit too much. Anyway. The sun will come out soon. So my first little step into coloured pencils was seeing this drawing on Instagram, and just I couldn't believe that it had been done with pencils. It looked like a painting, and the detail that you could get in on this drawing was, oh, awful weather in Colchester, Marilyn. Good morning, Marilyn. We're all in it together, that's good. So I decided to go to my local art shop. It's a tiny little art shop in Bristol, the top of Park Street. I'm hoping it's still there because of COVID. A lot of the little ones have had to close. It's just terrible. But I went into this art shop and I asked the man, who was more than happy to talk about art supplies, and I said I wanted to try coloured pencils. What would he recommend? And I didn't know that there was a difference between water-soluble coloured pencils and the ones that I'd seen on Instagram. So I saw these pencils and thought how amazing they looked. And these are the Caran d'Ache Supracolor, and they're Supracolor 2 soft. Didn't see the little paintbrush that's on the pencil, and so I bought 20, and they weren't cheap, they were really expensive. So I think I had an inkling that I was going to love coloured pencils, and it was possibly just something that appealed to me because graphite I always loved. I love the idea of, I do like to paint, but I had 2 small children and room was a bit difficult, and getting the paints out with one that was a toddler and likely to grab everything, it just didn't really make sense in my life at that time. And also you need to leave it out to dry, and if you're using acrylics it can be quite messy, and so the pencil part of it really appealed to me in the fact that they were mess free. You could do it on a corner of a dining table and it wasn't really a problem, and they were just so beautiful and vibrant, and you could get some great detail in with it. Morning from Singapore, how exciting. Good morning, Madeline. Oh, how lovely. So I came home with these 20 pencils that cost quite a lot of money, and because they are water soluble, they are soft, and it kind of says it on the tin, but I didn't know any. I was a bit naive and I didn't really understand that there were so many different pencils out there. And this was 5 years ago, and in the last 5 years, coloured pencils have just gone bonkers, because I do think that people are starting to see the appeal of them. You can build up your set, you can start with a few, and as I said, they're versatile, they're mess free, all of the great things about them. So I got home and I drew a kingfisher, and I haven't got it to hand right now, and it was my first drawing with these pencils, and I was actually quite impressed with the pigment, the colour, but they were soft. They were soft pencils, unlike what I use now, which are mainly polychromos, which are very hard. And I suppose I was a little bit, I couldn't quite get the detail in, and I only had a limited amount of colours, but it was still a lot of fun, and it kind of was the next, it kind of gave me that push forward to then explore a little bit more. Now, I then went on to buy polychromos because I'd seen a lot more about those, and then I used those for quite a few years. And then recently I've started thinking about all of the other pencils, and you know, how I could use those together with the coloured pencils, use them on their own, you know, in their own right, they are amazing, and just exploring a little bit about how I can use them all together. So the great thing about watercolour pencils that I absolutely love is the fact that they force me, in a way, to be a little bit looser, because I can get a little bit caught up in the detail of trying to make something. I know it takes years of practice to get something to look photo hyper realistic, and I don't think I ever really want to get there, or maybe I don't have the time to practice to get there right now, but I do want it to look like the photo in the way that it builds up texture, it looks fluffy or furry, and you could imagine that something, you know, coming off the paper. That I do love that, but I can get a little bit caught up in it, and I can put a lot of pressure on myself and judge myself and get frustrated. And I think that then you almost lose the reason that you're doing it, and possibly, you know, for me personally, I felt it was important to take a step back and start to think about why I do art, what I'm actually hoping to achieve out of it. And so taking the pressure off and using something a little bit looser seemed like a really good thing to do in between my coloured pencil work. I still love the detail, and coloured pencils are great for mindfulness and really zoning out, because you only can think about that. But I do think that there is a limit to how much that you can do that, or possibly should do that, or listen to yourself and just work out that actually let's try something that is a bit freer, a bit looser, a bit more fun, and gives you a little bit of a difference. It's a bit like exercise, isn't it? If you did weights all of the time and didn't do any cardio, then you haven't got that balance. And I think it's all about balance. And you just found me this morning, Hilary. I'm so glad you have found me. You love watercolour pencils. Have you used them for a while, Hilary? I'd love to know. Can you use Caran d'Ache Classics water soluble pencils? Yes, you can, Marilyn. Caran d'Ache, you can't go wrong with Caran d'Ache. I mean, what a range. Quality pencils, beautifully pigmented and soft. Yes, just, you know, any coloured, any Caran d'Ache or Faber-Castell, and I know there are so many more nowadays, but I don't think you can go much wrong with Caran d'Ache or Faber-Castell. I just think they are absolutely amazing. So, as I said, I moved on to the coloured pencils, and then coming back over the last couple of years, where have I put them? I bought this a little while, I can't remember how long I've had it now. I don't use them that often, but I definitely am going to be using them more, because I think you almost forget how good things are until you get them out again and start working on them. So these are the Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer, I think that's how you pronounce it, watercolour pencils. And I got the box of 60, and actually these have done me okay. And I think, again, for me, using these pencils, it was about taking the pressure off myself and actually enjoying them for what they are. And so I'm going to add to them, because there are 120 in the set, just as there are with the polychromos. But for this demonstration, and you know, most recently, I've stayed with the pencils that I have, and some of them are elsewhere. But don't you think these tins are absolutely amazing? How exciting. I don't want to drop them. Look at that. Anyone that loves pencils, what a beautiful sight. Oh, just heaven to me. They just fill me with so much joy. I haven't put, look at that, I haven't put them back properly. That's more practicality and timing, but wow, look at that. Oh, rainbow of colours. Beautiful, beautiful pencils. So I'm going to be using these today, but I actually demonstrated with these as well. So I'm going to be showing you the difference. I've only got, how many greens do I have in here? Two greens and a couple of yellows. And another bonus of watercolour pencils is that you can blend them, that you can mix them, that you can add water and activate these pigments and spread them around. And so having a little bit of colour theory is quite handy when it comes to watercolour pencils. So I would recommend getting yourself a little colour wheel. Actually, this side's probably a little bit better. So obviously it shows you the primary colours at the triangle, the 3 points, and then it shows you what happens if you mix the colours together. And on the back, it's got those different kind of tones of it. It tells you what the colour words mean. It talks about complementary colours, which are really quite important when it comes to things like shadows. So complementary are the kind of opposite on the colour wheel. And if you have, say, like an orangey cat, maybe, say you're drawing a ginger cat, actually adding a little bit of purple or kind of a lighty mauvey blue into a shadow really makes that orange pop. We talked a little bit about that in another workshop we did, which was, funnily enough, Ginger Tabby. And so knowing a little bit about the way that colours work can be quite helpful. The other great thing about watercolour pencils is that you don't need to worry about mixing your colours, because that is a skill in itself. It's something that takes a lot of time to practice, to get right. And again, it's about taking the pressure off. Now that can be fun, of course it can be fun. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it is another skill that you need to add on top. And so with these pencils, they take away that problem, I suppose. If you're not good with mixing colours, and I've got to say, I'm not the best, definitely. It's an experiment. Sometimes it goes right, sometimes it goes wrong. And I've been doing it for a while, and I'm definitely not the best. I've got a lot to learn when it comes to that. And so what did I do? Well, I'm thinking, actually, I know so much more about pencils. I'm just going to just work with what I've got and what I love. So let me just refresh the screen. Has anyone got any questions about watercolour pencils before we hop on? I've absolutely disappeared. Yes, many years. Oh, you've used them. I hope so. Have those? Ah, Joy. Yes. Yep. Is that what are you going to be drawing along with me, Joy? With your watercolour pencils? They are absolutely fine. I've got to say, with these ones that I used when I only had 2 greens, it worked out okay. And I think it's all about just playing and having a bit of fun with them. And like I said, taking the pressure off. What are the other things about them? So when we talk about the paper, I'm just going to use this again because it's absolutely fine. It's actually okay. It's been proven to work quite well with water, with ink, with that kind of thing. So that's absolutely fine. The accessories for watercolour pencils, actually, they don't all work that well. But the great thing about watercolour pencils, a bit like any other watercolour, is that you can add a little bit more water to it and then lift it off. And I think I might demonstrate that and make a big fat mistake just so that I can show you how to lift it back up again. And that's what I only got the basic colours. Me too for the first one, Caroline, and then the second one I used my Albrecht Dürer, which have a lot more greens in. So these are the Albrecht Dürer. And the great thing about, so whatever you've got, whether it's the Caran d'Ache or the Faber-Castell, I don't know about the Caran d'Ache actually because I don't have them, but I imagine it's similar. The Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer are exactly the same colours as the polychromos. So that's really helpful because I knew which colours to pick really easily because you get to know them really well. This main one that I used is the earth green yellowish, and it's exactly the same in the polychromos, the cold greys, the warm greys, and so that makes it really easy. So if you do get to know a certain set of pencils, then there's definitely no harm in continuing that along just to make life a little bit easier for you. Right, so let's get started with our watercolour pencils. I just realised that I don't know where my watercolour pen is. Oh, here it is. Oh, look at that. Organised. Right, let's turn you around. I'm just going to show you what I've done. So this one is with the Caran d'Ache Super Soft ones, and I only had 2 greens, and I had, what else have I got? A cream. I didn't have a white, and I've got this kind of yellowy green, olive yellow, that one. Oh no, I do have a white. That was a lie. And I have a grey as well. So that's all I used for that one. And it's okay. It was a kind of first attempt at the apple. It's a little bit smudgy around there. That's all right. Let's not worry about that too much. But I suppose it's a little bit greener. Does that mean a little bit brighter, a little bit more of a bluey green than a yellow green, which is what I was really going for. And then this one is with the Albrecht Dürer ones, which I have a few more colours in, and also it was obviously the second time that I'd done it, and usually if you do something a couple of times you're going to see a little bit more in your reference photo too. I'm going to make a big noise now putting the pencils on the table, sorry about that. Right, they are down. So who's drawing / painting with me this morning? Let me know. Is that okay? Where have I put that? Look at that. Here's one I made earlier. I actually forgot that I didn't sketch my apples out this morning, and so that was a bit of a quick thing to do this morning. What I'm going to do first of all is take this line art away a little bit more. I hope you can still see. I've done it really dark for the sake of the camera, but I don't want it that dark at all. And what I'm going to do, what I would recommend, which is not what I'm doing at all today, is actually having your drawing flat. I've got it upright, which is going to cause a little bit of a problem because we are using water and we might get a little bit of runnage. Is that a word? Little bit of drips. So, but you know, that's absolutely fine. Just ignore that little bit. But if you're doing this, draw it flat because then it won't run. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to find my apple. The other thing, I was going to talk about the accessories. The other thing that you can use is this kind of thing. Now this is art masking liquid and it's actually in a pen. So what you can do is actually put sections on this. So you could leave highlight, if you wanted a highlight left free, you could colour this in. And it's blue, which is really great because it shows up. And then you can put the pencils all around and then activate it and then lift up this blue stuff that dries and you've got a perfectly preserved highlight. So there's things like that that you can use with your watercolour pencils that I generally use with watercolour in the past, and actually they work brilliantly together. So watercolour pencils is a lot about building up the layers. So I'm going to start with the lightest colour that I can see, and in the Albrecht Dürer, which we've got in the polychromos, we've got a cadmium yellow, we've got that earth green yellowish, and then what else have we got? We've got like a cream colour, which I think I'm going to use for the highlights. So what I'm going to do is start laying some pencil down. And the great thing about these watercolour pencils is they are so much quicker than coloured pencils. It's a completely different technique. It might just be my technique that's completely different, but I just use them completely differently. And that's what I love about it really, because if I wanted to get the effect of the coloured pencils, of course I'd be using my coloured pencils, and you can add more detail over the top by using your coloured pencils on top if you want to. So, but this is quicker, it's looser, and if I want to have a little bit of a play and a little bit of fun just getting colour down and making myself be a little bit looser, take the pressure off, take the judgment out, then this is what I will use. So I'm just adding a little bit of a yellowy layer down, first of all. And you'll need to put quite a few layers down before you add the water in order to blend them and activate them and that kind of thing. A lot of people will tend to try and add the water too soon, and in which case it just tends to lift the water up and there isn't enough pigment really to play with, if that makes sense. So I'm actually going in quite scribbly technique because I'm not worrying about the stop and start lines as I would with coloured pencils, because I'm going to blend it away with the water. I'm going in with this earth green yellowish and just adding a little bit of green. I'm starting to think about the direction of the texture, but not too much. So I'm going to probably add a couple of layers before I add the water. And then we're going to add the water and then we're going to let it dry, and then I'm going to move on to coloured pencils whilst it dries and then come back and add another layer if we have time. I'm going to add that diamond in that I love. I just think it's a really nice, interesting thing to have. You you can leave it out if you want, that's what I was trying to say. You're very welcome to leave it out, but it is there if you look at it. It's probably just not as pronounced as I'm putting it, but I want to get that in. Can everybody see okay? Is anyone drawing along with me? Let me know. So I'm just getting a light layer down on this left-hand side because it is a lot lighter overall. And just looking to see where the greens show up more, and in which case I'm just adding, I'm not pressing any harder, I'm using a really light hand, and what I'm doing is just going over the same area a couple of times to get more pigment down. I'm not pressing any harder. And then I'm going to get the green on this side, on the right hand side. There's a big shadow there, as we know from yesterday. I just thought it'd be a really good way to compare by drawing the same subject, because I think it can be, and also doing it on the same paper if we can, because I think that's just the best way to compare. If you're keeping things constant and just changing your materials, your actual pencils, then it's a really good way to compare our finished results. And then what you can do is that you'll know going forward which pencils you want to use for certain pieces, because you'll know which effect that you want to get. And so it will be a lot easier to choose what pencils you're going to use for the next piece. I'm going to go in with the warm grey 2. I think I've got a cold grey 2, but I seem to have lost it, which is not helpful. I don't know where it's gone. I've probably mixed it in with my polychromos or something, so I'm going to have a little look for that later. But I'm pretty sure in that set of 60, you've got a low number cold grey and a low number warm grey, but I can't find my low number cold grey. So I'm just going to use what I've got. That's okay. So adding some grey in to the shadows like we did yesterday, because they are quite grey. Let me just check. If anyone's got any questions, then please don't hesitate to ask. I'm more than happy to answer them as we go. So I'm just adding some grey into here as well. Not worrying too much about going up to the lines. I don't really want to go over the line because that's just going to be a bit difficult to lift up, but I'm not worrying too much about going right up to the lines because I'm going to spread the pigment with the water, if that makes sense. Just changing back to... How are you getting on, Kate? You'll give it a go. Brilliant. That's so lovely. Right, adding a little bit more grey. How many layers have we done now? 2, building up to 3. In some areas I've added quite a lot of the same colour over the top. It's got a lot of grey in that shine. Up here, there's quite a lot of grey here. So I'm going to add a little bit more. It doesn't show up. I mean, if I pressed really hard, it would show up, but we don't want that really. We don't want to flatten the tooth of the paper because we really want to get more and more layers in. Right, I'm going to go in with more green on this side, adding much more of this earth green yellowish. Definitely one of my favourite greens. It's so natural looking. When I mixed greens, they tend to be, even though I know that I'm adding too much blue, they always tend to look a little bit too blue. Trying to get that balance right, adding more yellow. But this is just like the ideal colour, you don't have to worry about it. And the other thing I found with mixing colours is that if you aren't as confident like me, and then you mix the perfect colour, and then you have to leave your drawing for whatever reason, the great thing about watercolours is you can just add a little bit of water, but if you haven't mixed enough, it's very, very difficult to get the exact same colour again. And with these coloured pencils, these watercolour pencils, it takes away that problem. And that's good with me. I just think that's a real bonus to them. So I'm starting to add layer by layer, more and more colour. I'm doing it pretty quickly because I am aware that I ramble on about pencils, and I said to myself yesterday before we started, about an hour I think we'll be live. That's probably more than enough time, and it was almost 2 hours. So it just goes to show how I could probably talk for hours on the subject. But I don't want to keep you here all day. Right, so adding a little bit of green around here and around the top. Let's make this apple look like an apple and add some to the actual top of the apple. just leaving out the stalk. And then I'm going to add a little bit of green in the middle as well, leaving out the stalk again. Leaving out that bit. You can see how messy and sketchy this is, but this is the fun part. That bit as well, just so that it makes sense. It looks like the stalk's actually coming out of the middle of the apple. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow, I think, but I want to, yeah, not blend, because we're not really worrying about that too much, but I want the overall look. So I want, when I add the water, I want this side to look a little bit more yellowy. Make sure I'm adding it in that diamond shape as well. Otherwise that's going to look like another random highlight. Adding a little bit of yellow to the grey. And then I'm going to start building up through the greens. The other green that I found amazing for this particular drawing is the olive green yellowish. And of course, you think about with the earth green yellowish and then the olive green yellowish, they complement each other brilliantly because they've got that yellow undertone in them. So we can bear that in mind for our coloured pencil drawing as well, because we're going to be using exactly the same colours again. So look how great that goes. Look at the shadow that it creates. It's a really nice natural shadow. A little bit down here, a little bit down here. I seem to have neglected this part. It's because my phone's covering it. I've neglected the bottom of the apple. So adding a little bit more of that, what's it called again? Olive green yellowish. Making that all make sense, then adding a little bit more of the earth green yellowish. So maybe you could let me know what sets you've got, because it'd be nice to know what the options are. So we've got the Derwent ones, we've got the Caran d'Ache. Has anybody got any other ones that they'd recommend? Maybe that they've been using for years and just absolutely love? Let me know. I'd be really interested to know what pencils you have. So I'm just adding a little bit of green to the shine because that's not completely white. I'm just using little stripes to get a little bit of texture. And then I'm going to start to just build up enough green that when we add the water, it's going to blend nicely. Adding a little bit of green to that area that I neglected. So adding that in too. And this is just so much fun. I'm not worrying about what I'm doing really. I'm just looking at the reference photo. I'm adding all of the colours and then just seeing what happens. It's just... This is definitely what fills my cup. I love the detail work and sitting down and drawing and losing my mind in the coloured pencils, but I definitely crave this kind of thing as well. There's no pressure on me. There's no frustration at all, really. I'm just enjoying making art and unleashing that creativity, I suppose. I'm creating something, and that's what it's all about. It's not always about what you create. Where's my diamond gone? That's completely gone. So I'm going to add that in again. Is everyone still there? Because the comments aren't moving at all. Black edition Faber-Castell for black paper. New ones will let you know how they do. Oh, how exciting! How exciting, Marilyn. Do you know what? I haven't really explored all of the different colour papers with these. And just so amazing how versatile they are, how many different methods you can use, what you can do with them. They're just brilliant. Absolutely fab. I'm just going to add a little bit more darkness here because the water will wash it out. You'll see it kind of disappear a little bit. And don't forget, watercolour, and these are watercolour pencils, dries a lot lighter than how it looks when it's wet. So you probably need to add more than you think you do. A little bit more green here. Look how sketchy and rough that looks. Looks a bit knobbly as well. And now what we're going to do is add some water. Now for ease for myself, I'm using this watercolour pen. Now you can of course use paintbrushes with some water, and these I would recommend getting a couple of size of the round brush because they tend to work brilliantly. You can use the point there to get a little bit more detail in, and also because of the size you can cover quite a big surface area, and I'd recommend getting quite a few different sizes. It's a little tinsy one. See them together, then they work brilliantly. Just get yourself a little pot of water, or two actually. I would recommend getting two. One to kind of swill your brush out to make sure that you're using clean water every time, and then you've got your clean pot for your water that you're going to be activating your watercolour pencils. The other thing I'd recommend is having a bit of tissue or an old tea towel, which I tend to do, to hand, because you don't want to mess it up, Caroline. Nor do I, actually. This is a little bit nerve-wracking for me because I think I have no idea how this is going to turn out. It could completely go wrong, but that's okay. I'm not putting the pressure on. I have the 120 set of the Caran d'Ache Soft and the 24 Museum, as well as set of the 6. Oh, how lovely. Oh, Hilary, I'm a little bit jealous. Let me see. It says see more. Am I going to stop being live if I press that button? Lovely. I've got the Museum Aquarelle, which is the Caran d'Ache, isn't it? White. And I tend to use that with my coloured pencil work. And I would lick the end. And then you can get it to become quite opaque over your coloured pencil work. So it's good for light fur or whiskers or whatever. Right, so with this pen, what you do is you actually squeeze it to then push the water up into the nib. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm really heavy-handed or whether, yeah, it's because I'm really heavy-handed and I squeeze too hard. So what I always do is squeeze it and then I put it on my hand or on a tissue, and then I'll use the water from my hand to put onto... Has that gone blurry? Has it gone blurry? Or is it just the... Have I got water on my camera? Is that better? It has gone blurry, I think. It did. That's better. Right, so I'll put it on the back of my hand. Can you see? And I'll use that water because otherwise I always splodge a great big bit on the drawing. So the first thing I'd say is always work from light to dark. So we've got a gap here where our highlight is. Favourite on location, the museum. Museum Aquarelle, is that what you mean, Hilary? So going from the light area to the darker area, because we don't want to smudge our dark into our light. Does that make sense? So it's important the order that you do things in. And look how this activates the pigment. Look at that. Isn't that just amazing? So you feel like you're painting, if you like painting, but not having the extra added pressure of mixing your colours. So you can see why you need a few layers down, because I'm going to put some of that yellow into that highlight, because otherwise it just won't show up. I'm actually going in the direction of the texture of the apple with my little weird paintbrush, and I'm spreading that colour into the lighter areas, and then I'm going to move on to the darker areas. You can see how it just spreads it. It activates the pigment. You'll see it a little bit more over here, but you can't just kind of scribble all over the whole thing, because your paintbrush strokes will really show up. They'll dry a little bit lighter, so you can see how it's running. I need to be a bit careful with that. Please have your drawing flat, not like me. I've got my tissue handy if I need to. So I'm activating the colour. I'm thinking about the direction that my paintbrush is going in. I'm going to activate, that's going to drip. I'm going to activate the lightest part on this side. Lifting up some of that water because it's running to the bottom, as I knew it would. Adding it to the lighter part. using the paintbrush in the direction that you want to go for the texture, spreading this bit. And what you're doing is that you're getting rid of any graininess. So you're doing the part of the kind of pencil blenders with the water. How brilliant is that? And then look at this part. I'm going to add a little bit more water, but I'm going to squeeze it onto my hand. I just have the landscape colours. Ah, I like your water brush. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a Faber-Castell, actually. They're really, really cheap. And they're just really handy. Look at that. It's smudged again. Is it smudged for you? That's better. It's just the focus. It's focusing on my paintbrush, not on my paper. So look at that. Now, what you might find is that you'll get kind of paintbrush lines. Now, in this case, I don't think that's a bad thing because actually there's quite a lot of texture going on in this apple. But if you don't like it, you can just scrub the edges and look how it just kind of softens everything. I'm not adding any more water. Just scrub away and it just lifts it back up again. So look how that's activated it beautifully. It's taking away the graininess really nicely, and that's our first layer done. I can use the paint on my paintbrush to go to the edge to clean that up, and I can activate that at the top. Right, so I was saying if I'd made a mistake with colour, with the pencils that I laid down, or if I went a little bit rogue and went through my outline and did a smudge. So I'm just going to show you how to lift it back up again, which is amazing, I think. It's just great. So what you need to do is add a little bit more water. So we'll say this part here, I've gone too dark. I'm going to add a little bit more water, and I'm going to keep dabbing. So adding a little bit more, it's all going to run. And then you just get a bit of tissue. And look how it just lifts it back up again. And then you can go and add a little bit more clean water. So that's how you do your erasing in watercolour pencils. You're not going to use erasers like we normally would, our Derwent or our Tombow Mono or anything like that. And look, it just, if you kept going with it and just added clean water, it will take it right back, nearly right back to the white paper. So if you've missed a highlight out, or if you've gone a bit wrong, add a little paper, dab it, and it will just lift it back up again. It's just amazing. I'm not going to add any more pencil because we need to really let that dry. And so we're going to move on to our coloured pencils now, and then we'll go back in. I'll show you how to layer back up again over the top and hopefully end up, here's one I made earlier, with something a little bit more like that. Now this, I think I could add a couple more layers, but you can stop whenever you want to. This is your drawing, and you can have it either have it quite painterly and a little bit messy, which I really liked on this. If I wanted to add more detail, I could go in with my coloured pencils. But if I wanted more detail, I think I'd probably do the whole thing in coloured pencils. So that's why it's nice to have the choice, really, of these brilliant pencils. Right, I'm going to go back to my screen. How did you get on? How are you getting on? Let me just see. It didn't run too badly, did it? There's a little bit of collection down here, which isn't great. Hello, Leslie. Lovely to have you. Say hello if you're watching. It's always great to have that interaction so that I can get to know you a little bit better, which is always lovely, and I don't feel like I'm kind of talking to myself. Technical difficulties. Oh, I know. Oh, technical difficulties are so annoying, aren't they? Right, so I'm going to actually keep my glasses on, and I'm going to turn the camera around. Hello again, and talk a little bit about coloured pencils. So, I think they are definitely have a place in my heart, coloured pencils. I just think they are amazing for so many different things. I think I've got water on my glasses. I think they're beautiful. I think they're vibrant. I think you can get a lot of detail in. You can go really dark with them. You can make things look really realistic. They're great for mindfulness. The reason I love them and why I was drawn to them, I think, was because as a busy mum of two, working, I've always kind of had my own business for the last 15 years or so, doing different things. But so life was quite busy, and I wanted something that would make me slow down, that would make me focus my mind on just what I was doing, because you have to. You can't really think about anything else, because it will go wrong, and it's therapeutic, it's kind of repetitive, and it's very slow, and some people don't like that, and I've got to say I don't like it all the time, which is why I then will choose pastel pencils or watercolour pencils to work with instead of my coloured pencils. But I love the fact that they do make you slow down. So if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit, my monkey's going on everywhere, take 10 minutes to do a little bit of colour pencil work. And actually I've got an idea of something that you can do. Sometimes taking on a big drawing is a little bit too much. Sometimes we get a little bit over ambitious, and it can become a bit overwhelming for us, because we think, because they are so slow, and you might not be in the right frame of mind to make it a positive experience, if that makes sense. So possibly doing other things that are actually mindful, that you can actually practice with the pencils, but you're not too worried about the end result, if that makes sense. So I would really recommend, these are from the wonderful Emma from the Coloured Pencil Shop. She designed them, she created them, and they are on her website to download. The Coloured Pencil Shop. If anybody's watching that is techie, if you could put the link in the comments, I would be really happy. If not, I will do it afterwards, and I think it might even be at the top of this group, because I get all of my open stock pencils, all of the little bits, anything that she has got, I will always try and look there first. She's amazing, the surface is great, and she is just lovely. So she's designed these beautiful charts. These are for the Faber-Castell Polychromos, and I would recommend doing this as a little project. What I've done is I've actually gone light at the top, and then I've gradually got darker towards the bottom, and that was deliberate, because first of all you can then see the range that the colours will produce. It's great for blending and practicing blending. It's great for getting hot, actually a little circle like this, it looks simple, but it's quite difficult to stay in the lines and make it look clean. And that's what I tried to do. I took my time, and look, I'm showing you one that I've actually gone out of the lines. How annoying is that? That's just, I've actually tried to be as precise as I can, because I wanted my brain to really focus on what I'm doing. She's got one for the luminance pencils. She might have one for the Pablos. But this is a really great mindfulness exercise. And if you haven't got the pencils that she's saying, because obviously the colours go together, then you can just make your own little sheet and just do mindful circles. I really would recommend that. We're going to be using, for our coloured pencil drawing, this paper again. Can't recommend it enough. I think it's amazing. Just going through what else I use with my coloured pencils. The Tombow Mono Eraser, and I'll be demonstrating that. The Derwent Electric Eraser, of course, look at the state of that. The Faber-Castell Kneadable Eraser, my little trusty fluffy brush that gets rid of any fallout, my slice tool. Now these are amazing, and I will be showing you that, hopefully. Coloured pencil make me smile and give me so much joy. Oh, I know the feeling. I love the smell. Oh, yes, I get that. Oh, so much. I love the smell. Sometimes I just open it and get that feeling. Weird, and it's not weird at all, Leslie. You are not weird in the slightest. You are completely normal. And this is what I love about art, bringing people together and understanding how important it is when you get a beautiful box of pencils. Like, you almost want to just buy this so that you could, and then leave it just so you can keep looking at it. Oh, heaven. Pencil sharpeners, can't recommend this one enough. The M&R, M+R. Just watch the fingers, like I said yesterday. It's got a big hole and a little hole, which is great for the luminance, which are a little bit wider, and the polychromos fits in there beautifully as well. And if you want one that catches your shavings, and it's pretty damn good, then the Swordfish Curve I would recommend as well. So my colour pencil journey, leaving aside the kind of mistake of buying the water soluble. My first set of coloured pencils after that were the Faber-Castell Polychromos 36 set in a little tin. And they were great for quite a long time. There was enough of the colour range. They obviously think about it a lot. There was enough of the colour range that I could draw with them quite happily for possibly a year, maybe even longer. Before then I realised that I possibly needed a few more of the greys. I started doing pet portraits by that time, and I needed a bit more earthy tones, and so I started building up my collection. I always bought them open stock. They used to sell them in Hobbycraft. Now I know we haven't been able to go there, and so I used to enjoy picking them off the shelves. But again, the coloured pencil shop, since I found her, I won't go anywhere else for my open stock coloured pencils. I just think she is great, and you'll get them the next day or the day after. Very, very quick and brilliant service. So I built up my collection of polychromos, and now I've actually got all 120 and quite a few of the same colours. I've got them in a little drawer, pencil drawer. So I always use the greys, the cold grey 1 to 6, the warm grey 1 to 6. The dark sepia I think actually is my most used pencil. I think it's brilliantly versatile, and I use it a lot for shadow, and great for kind of starting the drawing without using the black. I do use the black a lot. The white's not great, but it's good for embossing. What else? Pablo's, no, Luminance. Then I moved on to Luminance pencils, and I heard about them online, as you always do, little kind of things that you hear. And what were great about the Luminance was that they were good for blending, and I actually wanted them originally for skin, drawing human portraits, because I've always been drawn to drawing humans, and I find them really difficult, and I quite like that, to just practice. And the skin, because the Luminance were a lot softer and because they had a lot of flesh tones, they are great for drawing skin. And then I also found they were great for fur, because it blends the pencils really well, it gets rid of any graininess of the paper, and they've actually got beautiful colours in the Luminance. How many are in the Luminance? I think it's 76, might be 72, and then in the last year or so they brought out 28 new colours, 24 of which are in a portrait set that I think the Colour Pencil Shop do, Emma. And those colours are amazing. They've got more kind of fleshy tones. They've got a beautiful dark indigo, which is great for black fur, so getting that hint of blue in. And they are just beautiful pencils, Luminance. I think they're fantastic. Caran d'Ache, again, you can't go wrong with them. And then I heard about Pablo's, and I thought, oh, what are these? How are these going to be different? And actually, I haven't got many Pablo's. I've probably got 20. Don't know how many are in a set. Probably up in the 70s again. But there are some colours in the Pablo's that are so different to anything else that I've got. I love the cocoa. I use that all the time. They've got some beautiful bluey greys, which are again great for darker animals and shines and things like that. And they've got some beautiful browns. They've got one called Chestnut, which is just stunning. It's like a really orange, obviously it's chestnut coloured, but it really is, like, it's not just a name that they've put on it. They've got the shine and the vibrancy and the pigment of the chestnut absolutely spot on. So it's great to build them up. I've heard the Derwent Lightfast are amazing. There are so many different options for you to choose from, and it would be really nice to let me know what you use actually, and why you love them. So what you use and what you love most about them, that I'd be really interested to know, because part of me is very loyal to the pencil I've got. They work beautifully. Why would I then need to find any more? But another part of me is itching to find out what's there, and actually using certain pencils from different sets because of their good quality, because of their colour, whatever that might be, is not a bad idea. Why not do that if you can? Right, so let's move on to the coloured pencils. Or anything else I would like to say? Great for detail. Yeah, the only negative, if you can call it a negative, about coloured pencils is that they are quite slow. But, you know, that's got its plus in it too, I think. So let's turn you around again. Let's move on to our coloured pencils. I'll just tilt the phone a little bit. So this is my little coloured pencil apple, and I'm able to use the accessories a little bit more with this. I've used the slice tool, I've used the Tombow, and we are going to be doing that so I can show you what we do. So let's see if I can, where's my, here it is. There we go, again, really rough sketch. I'm going to pull that up because we don't want that too dark. It will show through, the coloured pencils will show through, so we don't want that lifting that back up again. Smudges and everything. So let's just pull up my reference photo again. Keep losing it. Oh, I've just gone online. Right, so with coloured pencils, let me just move my watercolour ones out of the way. They're quite a different technique, actually, from anything that we've used so far. I'm using similar colours that I did, well, the same colours that I did with my watercolour work, but with coloured pencils, you can't really apply light over dark like you can with the pastels, like you can with the graphite. You can kind of lift it back up again. You can to a certain extent with the coloured pencils, but definitely not as easily. And I think if you have in your mind as a general rule when you're using coloured pencils that you have to work from light to dark, then I don't think that you can go far wrong. And then all of the tools that we use will just be there to help you along the way. So what I would do with this one is actually I'd go in with the lightest colour that I can see always, and I'm going to be adding that to the highlight, which is the cream, and I'm going to be adding that as a base layer, because generally what you're wanting to do is get rid of the graininess of the paper. I know a lot of artists talk about that, how it's frustrating. So getting rid of the graininess of the paper is definitely something that I like to do. And so by adding lots and lots of layers, that's how I achieve a smoother look. So I'm using a light hand again. I'm not pushing hard because we don't want to, I'm just going to have a sip of water. We don't want to, what was I going to say? We don't want to flatten the tooth of the paper. So the paper, if you look really closely under a microscope, it's like peaks and troughs. And what we're doing is filling up the troughs, really. Your pencil will lie down on the peaks, but then you'll see the little troughs in between, which will be the graininess that you're going to be seeing. And what we're trying to do is fill up those little troughs so that we get a smooth surface. Does that make sense? So adding the cream into the lightest parts that I can see, which is definitely on your on the left-hand side of the apple. No, that one, is it made by Do It? No, this is actually a Faber-Castell one, this water brush. But I imagine that they have lots of different makes that you can buy, but this one was really quite cheap. I think it was like £3. Not much at all. So yeah, Derwent most definitely have them as well. And then I'm going to start going in with so we've got our first layer down, and then we're going to go in with this is a May green, which is a really lovely light green. And I'm going to start adding a layer. I'm using circular motions, so I'm not going backwards and forwards, and I'm certainly not going horizontally, because that's going to show up. You're going to get stop and start lines, and then you're going to find that difficult to blend. So I'm using a light hand. If you've got a very naturally heavy hand, then move your hand down the pencil and then hold it at the very end. And you've got less control, you've got less pressure that you're actually going to be able to put on the pencil. And it's a good way to kind of train yourself to use a light hand. I can't really press any harder than this, holding it this far back. Does that make sense? So I'm adding the May green, which is again a lovely yellowy green. I'm adding that all over where I've put my cream, apart from these highlighted areas, because I don't want to add too much pigment in there yet. Because until we've got other sections in, we're not really going to know how dark to go. So I'm adding this green all the way over. This is actually a lot quicker than I would normally work. I would be a lot more careful. Thank you for the info. I use Derwent water brushes quite a lot, but like the small size of that one. Yeah, it's really compact, isn't it? And it's almost got like a mixture between lots of different ends, so it's versatile to use. You can use the tiny point for the detail, but it's actually big enough that you can cover a big surface area with it. So I think that's yeah, I definitely recommend. I'm really happy with it. So adding a couple of layers, not pushing any harder, just going over the same area a couple of times. If you want to add more pigment, we're going to add our grey in. I'm actually going to go in with a cold grey into the shine. And again, take your time, don't rush it like I am. Adding that colour in. I'm using circles again, I'm using a light hand. And I'm just trying to get that pigment down by adding a few layers of it. I'm not pressing any harder. Only pressing, putting more pressure on towards the end, which is called burnishing. The more I look at this apple, because this is probably the 9th time that I've drawn it with all of the different pencils, the more I see. Isn't that amazing? So if you want to have a look at your progress and see how far you've come, if you're feeling a little bit frustrated and you think that you may have plateaued in your artwork, I really would recommend that you find a reference photo that you've used before and draw it again and just see the difference. Because instead of comparing yourselves to other people, you compare yourself to yourself and see how far you've come, and I can guarantee you will be pleasantly surprised. So I'm going to add the earth green yellowish now, my favourite green, and starting to build up the pigment now. Around this edge here, there was there's like a stripe, isn't there, that comes into the apple. And then I'm using a circle. I'm actually using bigger circles, more open circles, to start to get a little bit of texture in, because it's not just one block colour going down here. It's quite textured if you really look at it. There's lots of different depths of this tone within a tiny little area. It's like a little masterpiece in itself. So instead of going over the same section with the same pressure and the same amount of circles, I'm varying it up a little bit. So you get darker bits, you get lighter bits. And so you're starting to build up an interesting surface on the apple. Can you see how it's starting to very slowly get rid of the graininess of the paper? Now, this is why you need to be patient with coloured pencils, because it just takes time. You know, it's not going to happen immediately. Don't rush it and start pressing really hard, because you're not going to be able to get that depth in if you don't add the layers. I would always recommend building up layers. You hear that a lot, don't you? Layer, layer, layer. But it's true. I think that's what gets the best out of these pencils, and it is about, you know, getting the best out of them so that you enjoy using them. I'm coming down here. Look how light this is. Like it just really takes a lot of time to build up. Obviously, if I pressed really hard now, I'd get a good colour down, but I wouldn't be able to add anything over the top. Again, I'd be going a lot slower, and I'd be taking my time, and I'd be thinking about the edges. There's a line there which I just put in to highlight that transition between the two. I'm not really going to worry too much about going in with a cream over here, because actually the lightest colour that I can see is pretty dark, but I want to add I'm going to put the warm grey in on this side, and I'm going to add that highlight in. I'm using, again, circular motions. I am following the direction of the apple, so I'm trying to get that curve in. I'm not just going circles any direction or going horizontally. I'm actually following the direction of the apple. And if I want to add a little bit more pigment, I'm going over the same area a couple of times just to make it show up a bit more, but I'm not pressing any harder. So you can see with these just a couple of layers, it's really quite grainy. There you can see the little troughs in the paper, so it's going to be showing up. But as you keep working it, it will gradually disappear. So this is quite a different technique than I'd use for fur. With fur, I would be using the pencil as I was drawing the individual pieces of fur and building it up slowly. But with this, I generally use the circular technique just to get a bit more of an even coverage down. A little bit of grey up here I'm going to put in. Is anyone drawing their coloured pencil apple with me? Let me know. A little bit of grey in there, and then I'm going to go straight in actually with the earth green yellowish. Why do I keep forgetting what this is called? I remember the green yellowish, but I don't remember how it starts, so I always call it the yellowish green and then know that there's an earth in there somewhere, but I don't know what order it's meant to go in. So I always have to look. How many times have I used this pencil and I still can't remember? So I'm actually adding this to most of it, but again, I'm not going over with the same amount of pencil strokes, the same number, the same area. I'm actually differing it a little bit. I'm adding a little bit of that green to the grey. Now this apple actually took me, I think it took me 2.5 hours with the pencil sharpening and working out what I'm doing and all of that fun stuff in between. But I've actually filmed the whole thing for this one, and it's on the information page for the membership if anybody would like to have a go at a real-time tutorial where I get to actually finish something. It's a bit difficult to do in these workshops because obviously I can't show you everything, otherwise we would be here for hours and hours and hours. But that tutorial is about 1.5 hours, maybe a little bit less, but it talks you through the whole process in real time to create the apple from start to finish. So that is available. If you click on the link, then it will take you to that. If you just scroll down, it will show you free coloured pencil apple. Completely free. Just gives you a little bit of an inkling as to what the membership is like. Gives you an opportunity to do a tutorial, try before you buy or whatever it is that they say, and just have a go at drawing your own. Of course, you don't need to join the membership if you take the class. No pressure at all. But it's there if you want to go to have a little project maybe over the weekend. That might be quite nice to do. So you can see I'm starting to build up. It's really quite grainy, and you can see my pencil line, so I probably would have taken that up a little bit more. But just adding a little bit more of that in. I'm starting to think about the detail a little bit, although we are very much at the early stages here. I think I'm going to go back to the May green and just work on that transition between the mid green and then the lightest green over on that left hand side. So using the circular motions again. What I really want to do is show you some techniques with the accessories, but in order to do that I need to get quite a lot in, and so I am rushing a little bit. moving it too far that way. There you go. Right, so earth green yellowish, getting that part in because otherwise it doesn't really make sense as an apple. And then starting to get these little bits in as well, just missing out the stalk for now. And then we can always add that in later, adding this part. How is that starting? So you can see it's starting to make a little bit of sense now. It's definitely far away from being finished. I'm going to look for the other pencil that I use for darkening, the olive green yellowish. So this is exactly the same as the watercolour pencil that we use. And I'm going to start to build up and start to map in, because what I like to do is, if I was going to step away from this drawing, I like to map in certain parts so that I know where to pick it up again if I come back to it, when I come back to it. Starting to map in the darkest shadows now. I'm certainly not pressing very hard. And actually, if I was drawing something like a dog, like a bigger piece, I wouldn't do the whole thing as I'm doing now. I would work in sections and get it like 80% finished before I then moved on to the next part. But for the sake of this workshop and just to demonstrate the different pencils, I am working on the whole thing all at the same time, which actually is quite interesting. But something small like this, I think you can do a little bit more. Just adding some of that darker green into the top, and then adding some little details in. There was a little bit of darkness there. Just looking over the whole thing, a little bit of darkness there. Now with coloured pencils, you don't have, like at this stage with the watercolour pencils, we added a little bit of water, didn't we, to really make it pop. Now you can, if you want to, use a solvent. Have I got one handy to show you? No. I very rarely, because I'd probably use the watercolour pencils if I wanted to do this, but sometimes you can use a solvent to blend, and that does a similar thing to water with the watercolour pencils. So if you do want to speed up your coloured pencil work, then you can always add an odourless mineral spirit to blend. I have seen people use different things like baby oil, and things like that, which actually do work, but I wouldn't recommend it to sell. What are your most favourite coloured pencils that you use the most? If I had to pick one and I wasn't allowed to use any others, I would always pick the polychromos, definitely, because they do everything really. They're so versatile. You've got 120 colours to choose from. You can get those details in. They do blend just using them. They're not as soft as the luminance, but they can create a lovely soft, especially with like the, look at that lovely warm grey. It just seems like a completely uninteresting pencil, but it's just so much more than they're just amazing. They hold their point really well, so you can get the detail in and you don't have to sharpen them that often. They are beautifully made, so if you drop them on the floor, which I do regularly, you might snap the little end off, but you certainly won't snap all the way down through the casement that you would do with cheaper pencils. So yeah, if you're going to choose one, and if I had to use one pencil or one set of pencils again for the rest of my life, I would pick the polys, definitely. So I'm going to add the, what's this? Oh, it's the earth green yellowish again over the top of the dark to start blending that in, starting to slowly blend the pencil. I'm softening the pencil strokes, but you can see how slow this is. You aren't using anything to blend. And I do like the fact that you have to take your time, you have to slow down. There's no, out the line, there's no rushing these. Because if you rush them, you just don't get the best out of them. And so they've all got their place, haven't they? They've all got something great about them. The graphite is brilliant to kind of go back to basics and not worry about colour. They blend beautifully. Your end result is fab. They're cheap, they're easy to use. And then the pastel pencils, they blend beautifully, they're a bit quicker, and you can do light over dark, and you can also get quite a lot of detail in. And then you've got the watercolour pencils. My watch is telling me that I've been sitting down for too long. You've got your watercolour pencils, which are again quicker. You can have a little bit of fun with them, you can play with them, you can take the detail pressure off yourself. And what you can actually do with the watercolour pencils is that you can, you know, come back to them and add a little bit of colour pencil. So you've got 2 in 1 there. Just adding a little bit of green to the grey, because I do want that to. You can see how that's starting to lose the graininess. Please delete if not allowed, but Apple have a great app, colour pencil picker, for selecting the right colour. Yeah, I've heard about that before, Linda. I'm a little bit old school when it comes to, or just forget, really. I don't think it's a conscious effort to not use these things that are available, because some of these things are amazing. But I just forget they're there. So I am going to actually do that. Is it on? I've got an iPhone here, that's what I'm using. Can I just download an app and it just picks the colour for you? So you put in the maker pencil that you have, and then you hover over your reference photo, and then it tells you what colour you should pick. How great is that? I mean, why wouldn't you use it if it helps? For me, it's just forgetting that it's there. So yeah, what a great tip that is. Thank you, Linda, for that. I'm sure a lot of you are a little bit more savvy than me, and you might have heard of it, and you might have even been using it for years. But I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna try. And again, you know, if it makes it easier, if it takes the pressure off, then do it. If it takes one little element out of the kind of guesswork, if it's going to cut down on any frustration and help you to get on with your drawing, which is what it's all about, then why wouldn't you? You can see I'm swapping between the greens and the grey, and I'm just building up through the layers. I'm not really going to be able to use the tools effectively yet. The other thing I would say to think about is to put your real darkest things in. So in this case, it's the shadow and the stalk. And then you can see how dark you need to go with the rest of your drawing. So I think I'm going to do that now. Do a bit roughly. I'm going to add the light yellow ochre, and I'm just going to add it a little bit to the right-hand side of the stalk, very, very quickly. I'm then going to go in with the nugget, another one of my, or nougat. Depends where you're from. I say nugget. Is that a Bristol thing? I don't know. So adding it a little bit to the right-hand side, going in with the dark sepia, my favourite pencil. It's not my favourite colour, but I think it is my favourite pencil. Just adding a little bit in. I'm using little scribbly lines because I want to leave a little bit of gap in some places. So adding that in. A little bit onto that left-hand side. So building up through the layers. Again, this is another opportunity to build up. But look how small this little stalk is. And I haven't got my black to hand, but I would use a Polly's black. So I've got a Pablo black. It was just in my little pot that I used for the kind of trial run. So I'm just putting that black in all of these areas, and then adding a little bit of grey to this side, just to get rid of any graininess. I always go over with a lighter pencil, and then adding a little bit more darkness, especially to this side. Back in with this. And a little bit of, putting it in my mouth now, that's not a good idea, is it? So darkening up here, And then it definitely needs to be a lot darker in some areas, especially on that right-hand side. So now look how dark that stalk is, and then it really does show that it's way too light overall and we need to add a lot more layers in. Just makes it a little bit easier to see. So I'm going in with the olive green yellowish again and starting to build up here. I'm using little kind of scribbly lines and I'm following the curve of the apple. I'm not going straight down vertically and I'm certainly not going horizontally. So I'm getting the dark in, I'm adding layer by layer, slowly darkening up this side which is the darkest part of the apple. And then to help with the graininess, after I've got a layer of dark in, I'm going to go back in with a layer of green, and then that's going to start to blend the pencils together. It's going to soften the pencil strokes, it's going to get rid of the graininess, and it's going to slowly build up the depth of that shadow. And it's all about taking your time. Adding that little diamond in again. And then you can see how it's just starting to build up now. It's still pretty grainy, but I think a little bit of graininess on this apple isn't a bad thing because it just shows the texture of it. Now I just want to show you the slice tool a little bit, and in order to do that I'm going to have to go really dark, and so I'm going to burnish, which is just pressing really hard on the pencil. Don't do this, just want to show you the tools. So I'm just going to press a little bit harder because I need to get a lot more layers in and a lot more things to pick up. So that's a lot harder. I want to show you the kneadable eraser to begin with. This is really great for a muted shine and to be lifting up a little bit of pigment but not a lot. You can flatten it so it's a bit flat here, and you can look how you can lift up the pigment in a really lovely way. So what you're doing is just lifting it up to, and you can see it's on the eraser there. I use this a lot for something shiny like an apple. So I would use it around the edge of the shine to really mute it out and blend it in. That's difficult to do with pencils, and so these little tools are great to be able to really soften everything. I would do it around the top as well, just to mute that part. You can obviously knead it into whatever shape you like, and if you go over the same area a few times, it's going to be lifting it more and more layers back up again, which is fantastic. You can go in with your Tombow Mono, and actually because it's quite small surface area, you can lift things up pretty easily. Look at that. So I've actually gone quite hard on that side and it's lifting it up quite nicely. And I tend to, with fur, I'll lift up a lot more than, not a lot more, but probably the same as I put down, just to build it up. It's really, really great for that. The other tool is the slice tool. And what you're doing is you're scraping some of your pigment off. Still need a few more layers down, I think, but what you're doing is scraping. Don't go straight in because you'll just cut your paper. I'll try and do it so you can see. So you're scraping some of your pigment off, and this is really great for fur. It's good for texture. So I used it, let me get my other apple. I used it for these little white spots. I used it for this part here. I used it around the top to scratch some of the pigment off. Can you see how that creates that texture? I could use it on this one, couldn't I? So I'm going to do a line here, very random, but just want to show you. Look how it lifts it up. Really, really handy tool. It's fantastic. Look how far we've got with our coloured pencils. Not far at all. So please do watch that video if you want a little bit more of a real-time and complete apple, but I just wanted to show you kind of how I would build it up. I would keep going, I would keep building up through the layers until eventually you'd get, I think I probably could do a couple more on here, you'd get a much more finished, much more vibrant look of the coloured pencil. Does that make sense? The watercolour pencil, let's go back to that, now that it's had time to dry. And what I would do here is I would then start building up again, but I would blend in between each layer with the water. So instead of using a light pencil, which I would normally do, let me go back over that random hole that I made, and look how they layer back on again. Look how easy that is. Is the paper completely dry? Yeah, it is. And I would just keep building up, but I do it a lot looser. It's a lot freer because I'm not worrying about the direction of the pencils. I'm not worrying about being really neat. I'm not really worrying about detail. I don't want the overall look to be very, very detailed. That's just me. I think if I wanted detail, I'd use my coloured pencils. And for these, I just want to be a little bit freer and have a little bit of fun with them. So I would add some more layers in. I'd go back to that lovely olive green, what was it? Olive green yellowish. And I would add more of that. So building up the pigment, you can see how it's really starting to build up. And then once I've got a few more layers in, I would go back in with my water pen, putting it on my hand first of all, and start to blend. And then as we move on, you're going to see it's not going to be so grainy. It's actually going to, I always clean my end. It's actually going to start to properly blend the pencil. If you don't like these lines, you can just scrub away at them. But I'm just trying to get a little bit of texture in. And you might need to move the water around a little bit. You can use some of this in other places so you can actually paint with it. Look at that, it really does show up beautifully. Where have I put my other ones? And then eventually you can build, look how dark it goes. That's where we are now, that's a couple of layers in, and then we can go a lot darker later on. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about what we've done so far? Would you like me to demonstrate anything else? Do let me know. I'm just trying to close down all of the pictures of my apples that I've got and come back to Facebook. I'm a little bit delayed here. Oh, thank you for that, Linda. I've just seen the full message about the colour picker, which is brilliant. Thanks for the info. Use Derwent watercolours like this. Yes, I've read that already, haven't I? So how are you getting on? Are you painting your apples, drawing your apples, should I say, right now with me? How are you finding them? Or are you going to be drawing them a little bit later on and posting them in the group or DMing me? Completely up to you. Just checking the comments. So I'm just going to turn around again and speak to you. How did you find that? I hope you found that really helpful. It's a lot of things to kind of, I don't know, just, it's a bit overwhelming at times. Please don't worry about that. You can always watch this video back and go over some of the points that we've covered. I'm a little bit crooked. So yeah, please do go onto the link above and have a look at the free full colour pencil tutorial of this apple, because obviously I'm taking my time. It's a complete drawing, and have a little go at that. How many times can you add watercolour pencil? I've not run out yet. I think it's up to you how many times you kind of blend. Sometimes you get to the point where you are using your pencil and you're liking the amount of detail that it's putting in, or you're liking the way that your pencil is laying down, in which case you might then not want to add any more water to bleed that out again or blend it away. So I think for mine, I probably did it about 5-6 times with the layers, and then I built up with my pencils, because you can use them dry. You don't have to use water with them at all. You can just use them as you would do colour pencils, but they are a lot softer and you're not going to get as much detail in. I don't think. Some people probably can. There's always people out there that do these amazing things that they're maybe not originally designed for, but for me they are about being a little bit looser and a bit more yeah, a bit more free, I suppose. You're drawing later on, Marilyn, are you? Oh, don't forget to post it into the group. Please do like or love this video because it sends it out to the group. I can see that not all of you have done that yet, so please do that if you haven't, and you will be entered into the competition then as well. And please do comment if you haven't. Say hello if you haven't already. Tell me what is your favourite pencil that you've seen over these 2 days. Do you have a favourite, or do you like to use all of them at different times? And what's your biggest takeaway from today or yesterday? Is there something that I've said that you've just never thought of, or that you're going to try, or whether I've reminded you of something that you already knew? Let me know what your biggest takeaway from these 2 days are. I would love to know. There's stuff popping up all over the place. Let me know which one your favourite was. I think for me it's different on a different day, but I think I will always go back to coloured pencils. Whatever I have tried going forward, I always come back to coloured pencils. I just love them. I love the versatility of them. I love how they lay down and how pigmented they are. They are absolutely amazing. So I really hope you have enjoyed these 2 days. I really have. Anything to do with pencil, and I am absolutely in my element. You loved the video. Oh, thank you so much, Marilyn. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the membership, just to let you know that the doors are now open. They opened yesterday, but they're only going to be open until the 30th, and then I'll close the doors again. Never tried watercolour pencil even, but oh, good, Nancy. I'm so pleased about that. That's fantastic. So the art and mindset membership, the doors are open. Have a little go at the tutorial if you're wondering what's going on. Have a look at the information page that I have put the link in the description, just to show you what kind of things are added every month, what kind of things we do in there. It's just a space where people can come together and share their love of art in a very safe, non-judgmental, and I always want to be positive and inspiring. We all have our bad days, of course we do, but there's always something good to come from it. And I think if you've got the support of people that get you, then you just don't go down as low, and it's much easier to pick yourself back up again because you feel like somebody has got your back. And I think that's why I founded this membership to begin with, was because I wanted to build a tribe of people that really understood. I love to talk about pencils, and I wanted to share what I'd learned over the years, and if I can fast track your learning and help you to build your skills with your drawing, then it's very much split. It's very much half and half. It's the art side of things, which is really important to me to try and help as much as I can. I'll always answer your questions and help you with your own projects as well, not just with the tutorials, because sometimes you might not fancy drawing what I've put up. But I'm there to help you if you're working on a piece and you're finding it a little bit tricky. Then you can send me a picture and we can talk through what the next steps are. So there's that side of it too. There's having that support. There's a brilliant community. We've got our own private Facebook group that is just for members. It's a safe space to post your work, ask for help, talk about how you're feeling. And it's a very interactive place to be. We're going to be doing a lot more mindset stuff. So I think with this pandemic and all of the anxiety that it kind of brings with it, it's not just the health side of things, which obviously is kind of scary. It's everything else. You know, going back into the world now, it's going to be a different place than it was 15 months ago. And I think it's okay to be a little bit nervous about how it's going to look and how your life's going to be, and sometimes you might not want to go back to how it was before, and that's a little bit of a transition too. So I think this pandemic has highlighted what probably was already within us. It's just exacerbated some of the symptoms, and I think maybe it's a good thing that it's been brought to the surface and it's been something that we now talk about, and that we can you know, a problem half problem shared is definitely a problem half. The more you can talk about it and the more you can be open about it, the more people can say, I've been there, have you tried this, have you done that? And I think that's crucial to our well-being going forward. I think we really need to talk about how our mental health is. It's just as important as our physical health. And I think this pandemic has highlighted that. So that's the other reason for starting this membership, to be able to talk about mindset, to give you some tools on how to overcome negative thought patterns, and you know, that positivity then leads to other aspects of your life. If you aren't okay, if you haven't filled your cup, then how can you help other people too? I found that with my art and really working on myself and working on my mindset, I'm much more patient, I'm just happier overall, and that has a massive knock-on effect to how I am with my children and how I am with my husband and my family and my friends. It has a massive knock-on effect. So I really want to be able to help you with your art and fast track your learning, but I also want to be able to support you internally as well. I'd love you to join our amazing tribe of already just beautiful people that are already in the membership. They are such a lovely bunch, and I just can't imagine my life without it now. It's been so amazing to share this experience with some just fantastic people. So if you want to find out more about the membership, then click on the link. You can DM me and ask me questions, but there's plenty there's quite a lot of information on that page that I hope will answer some questions, but if not, then please do DM me. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. So I really hope you've enjoyed these 2 days. It won't be as long next time that I do another one, because I just enjoyed them so much, and I'm wondering what we can draw next. Maybe we can draw something with fur. You know, there's just so many things that I can do. So stay tuned in the group for the next workshop. Please do post your work. Please do like or love, please do comment, and then you'll be entered into a draw. I'll let you know when that's coming up to win a month's free membership or some of the lovely art accessories that will be finding their way to you in the post. So yes, I'm going to love you and leave you for now. I hope you have a great rest of the day. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys and talking about all things colour pencil, and I look forward to seeing you really soon. Bye for now.